Okay, let's pause for a moment before we look at the language aspects, just to summarize what we talked about. So God is reminding the Jewish people that we gave you a huge blessing. We gave you Moses, and he brought a law, a huge blessing. And God spoke to Moses, and he was one of the mightiest, one of the greatest messengers, and Allah sent him to the Jews. Then after that, God sent successive messengers to revive, keep alive the religion. And then he sent Jesus, because the law had become so hardened and so mechanistic and so outward and external that he brought the law back. He sent Jesus to revive, to re-spiritualize the religion. Okay. But what did they do? Okay. What did they do? They actually rejected every messenger. Now this is an interesting point. If they are claiming that we are the religious people, then God is saying, look how you treated the messengers. How did you treat your messengers? So therefore, your claim to being religious people is false, because you didn't treat your messengers well. Some of them you rejected, and some of them you killed. So the key thing here in this verse is about what does it mean by Ruhul Quds? They translate it as the Holy Spirit. What is it? Okay, what is the Holy Spirit? Now the commentators say the word Quds means holy, pure and sacred. So it's a spirit from God. And this means it's the Prophet Jibreel who came down, who supported. Other scholars say that actually the spirit refers to the Injil, the book. And they quote this verse that I've got there, وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِّنْ أَمْرِنَا. God is referring to the Quran here and saying to the Prophet ﷺ that we reveal to you a spirit from us, meaning the Quran. So therefore some scholars say that the word ruh meant that the law and the spiritual laws and principles that Jesus was given. But the key point is that Jesus was supported by a spirit from God. It wasn't a demonic or satanic spirit, and that's how he performed all his miracles. The second verse I've kind of highlighted is the word wolf. Okay, down here it's wrapped up. Okay, they say وَقَالُوا قُلُوبُنَا wolf. They say our hearts are impenetrably wrapped up against whatever you say. And what does this word wolf mean? Those of you know Urdu, we say ghalaf, covering. Okay. And what they said is our hearts are covered up. We can't see anything, we can't understand anything. Everything that you talk about doesn't get through to us. It's just covered. It's like somebody putting a covering over us and it's totally wrapped up. You can't see anything at all. The second meaning of this, which Ibn Abbas talks about, is that our hearts are full up with knowledge. We are so full of knowledge and wisdom that we can't take it anymore. That's it. We don't need any more. And this is a really difficult concept, and you find this today as well. You know, this leads to arrogance, where you think if you believe that you know everything, you can't learn anything more. If you think that's it, I've got everything now, I don't need any more knowledge, your cup is full, and you can't pour any more into a cup that's full. And the third meaning is that we find nothing from what you have said. Our hearts are empty from what you're saying. We can't connect anything that you're saying, what you're saying, to what we already know. And there's another interesting aspect. If you look at the Arabic, and this only comes out in the Arabic, it says وَقَالُوا قُلُوبُنَا غُلْفٌ. This can be a question. What do you think our hearts are covered, that we don't understand what truth is, what wisdom is, and we should follow what you're saying? So this can also be like an istiqama, like a question. What are our hearts covered? قُلُوبُنَا غُلْفٌ. And that's another reading into this. That what are our hearts covered? Do you think that we're so stupid that we don't understand things? We know what truth is, what right is. So they said this because they were making an excuse for not reflecting or taking heed, as God has made our hearts like this. And if He wanted to, He could incline our hearts towards His message. So they're blaming God, and this is determinism, saying, okay, if God wanted to, we would understand this. You know, but because we don't understand it, God doesn't want us to understand it. Okay, so it's that kind of logic determinism. They're not accepting responsibility for themselves. Okay, and when you find this happens today. I'm like this because God has made me like this. But actually, God has given you some choice. You have responsibility within that limited choice to make the right choices. You can't blame God. And this is what they were doing. And we see this amongst ourselves today as well. And the other thing they were trying to say was, they were saying our hearts and minds, we haven't got time to waste for things that have got no basis. What you're telling us has got no basis in our religion, in our books. There's nothing there basis. It doesn't correspond with what we have. If there was any logic or sense behind your message, we would be the first to take it on board. Right? And because what you're saying is complete nonsense, we are intellectual people, we're clever people, we're smart people. This doesn't make sense to us. Otherwise, we would be the first people to do this. And you find this, especially among certain classes of people, where this intellectual arrogance comes. Right? They think, oh well, because it doesn't fit in with what I'm doing, what I believe in, you can't be right completely. I'm not even going to consider it. You're totally wrong, because it doesn't agree with what I'm thinking. And this intellectual arrogance is being displayed here. Okay, very quickly, before we open it for questions, what lessons can we learn from this verse? First thing, the importance of reviving the core religious principles and values. The important aspect of religion isn't the outward aspect. The outward provides you with a structure, but the core aspect is the core values. And those values are sincerity, honesty, caring for others, service to others, becoming a better person, spirituality, all of those key things. Avoid making religion into mechanical rituals. So don't think your religion is just about the length of your beard, where you put your hands. This is not the essence of religion. And because over time, and when you find this, I can give you a personal example. I went through a period of time in my life where my prayers were completely ritualistic. I just prayed, I used to pray lots of nafal and so on, but they were just mechanical. There was no connection left with God. You would just, I need to pray this many amounts, this many nafal, I need to pray this amount of Quran, but there was no essence behind it. And over time, it becomes just a practice. And the other key aspect is recognize the drivers of arrogance. What is the basis of this arrogance? And this is the key thing, feeling that you know it all. Yeah? Nobody can teach me anything. Right? I'm really educated. I know religion really well. Nobody can tell me anything. I know it all. And that is the start of arrogance. And that's the start of your decline in your religion. If you believe that you can't learn anymore, that you've learned so much, nobody can teach you anything else. And this is underpinned by this desire for power and control of others for personal benefit. You want to gain power and control to benefit yourself, not to benefit others. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with leadership, but if that leadership, if you want that leadership purely to benefit yourself, that's arrogance, because you want to keep hold of your status in society, and it leads to exploiting others for personal gain as well. Intellectual objectivity. What I mean by this is that what the Jews did here, and rabbis and similarly scholars of today, they do this is, they don't look at the arguments, they look at who's saying it. Because you're saying it, we're not going to take it from you. They don't discuss the issues, but they look at the personalities. They don't approach religion with intellectual objectivity. Objectivity means you're not taking sides. Whatever it is telling us, we will take this. And we find this in sectarianism, where people will approach religion and the Quran with the preconceived ideas. They've got these ideas, and it's not objective. They're not trying to find out what the Quran is trying to tell them, but they want to twist those verses into their preconceived ideas already. So they accept or reject things based not on evidence but personal feelings of superiority or belonging to a group. Okay, we'll pause there. I'll pause there for any questions, and there was a question from the back first. We'll take that question. Okay.
You know when you said what's that word?
Peripheral. Yeah. Outward things. Yeah.
Is it all the sects?
No. What it means is there are, for example, the beliefs the seven beliefs, believe in angels, the books, and God, and they are core elements, and we've got clear-cut proof in the Quran about these things. There's no doubt about these things. Peripheral elements, I'll give you an example. So, for example, if you take the Brahmins and the Ubandis, for example, for example, the Brahmins will argue that the Prophet had knowledge of the present and the past and everything else. He had no shadow, for example. Right? He was made of light, he had no shadow. Now, you can find some evidences that support that, but also there's evidences that say it wasn't true. Okay? That's not clear cut.
So it has to be authenticated.
It has to be authentic. It's not. That's a matter of ikhtilaf. So most of the matters of religion are matters of ikhtilaf. And what these groups will do, they'll say, no, this is a core element. You have to believe this. Right? But actually, the real position is, yes, there is some evidence for. You want to believe that's fine, but there's also evidence against. You want to believe that's fine as well. We can't impose things. Most of our disagreements are because we are trying to make the issues where there isn't clear-cut evidence, qati dalil, and we're trying to make them into the core elements of religion. Okay? So the core elements, these don't change. These never change throughout time. They are the core values of religion. So, for example, connecting with God, worshipping God. But the outward elements will change. So the way dress, for example, Islam never brought one particular type of dress. Wherever the Muslims went, the local people kept their dress as long as it was within the boundary. Yeah, God creates a boundary, and within that boundary, you can do whatever you like within that boundary. But what happens? Some people say, well, no, you have to do this, even though you could do this if you wanted to, because it's within the boundary, within the hududullah, within the limits of God. So most of our problems today arise because we confuse the peripheral matters of religion with the core matters of religion. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? There was one on the back. Is that cleared?
I think in one of your slides, you divided, from your point of view, between religion and Sharia with inverted commas, and then you've got fiqh. Now, in order to make it meaningful, you have to translate religion into Arabic, because otherwise we don't know what you're talking about. And similarly, Sharia can have so many meanings. It may mean fiqh, it may not. Sharia in itself means religion.
Okay, very good point.
Can I just add to this question? I think it was a very pertinent question.
Yes.
In the light of the ayat, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. So, in light of that ayat, what is the kitab, and what do you mean by that with regards to your religion? And are you using fiqh as synonymous to Sharia, because they are different? That is the understanding of the Sharia, not the Sharia.
Okay. What I mean, thank you for both those questions, and I think it's a question of translation and so on. What I'm trying to distinguish between is the core elements of the deen, which are like the beliefs, the pillars, and like in the Quran, Allah talks about لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. For each group of people, we create a Sharia and a methodology, and a minhaj in a way. What the key message, this is my understanding, is that we have certain core concepts of religion, but when that religion is applied in different contexts, the way, for example, the way you would dress, what you can eat or you can't eat in terms of that specific region, there's certain, like for example, Allah has made certain things clear in terms of diet, so like swine, meat, and alcohol. But then you had lots of differences of scholars in terms of prawns and things like this. These things will change with that. So my understanding is that basically the core of religion is those non-negotiable elements. So for example, wherever you go, that will be Islam. If, for example, if the Prophet Ibrahim a.s. came today, he wouldn't be dressing anything like us, I'm presuming, Even the way he prayed might be very different to us as well. But all those elements depend upon the context of that people. But the key elements don't change. So for example, belief in Allah, the books, the angels, that will never change. Giving zakat, praying will never change. But the form of the prayer will. The way the prayer is, that will change over time. That will change with people on different contexts. But the core elements won't change. So what I'm talking about here, and what I mean in terms of Sharia is a complex term. Sharia includes the fiqh as well. You know, when people talk about Sharia law, they're also talking about fiqh as well. But for me, the basic distinction is this, that we should distinguish the core beliefs and values of religion, which I'm talking about as deen, from the practical application of that religion in a specific context, which can change. And you see that even amongst Muslims. There wasn't only 4 schools of thought, there were hundreds of schools of thought. Only 4 survived. Yeah, 4 schools of thought survived. Everybody interpreted it in a different way, as long as it stayed within the boundary that Allah has drawn for us. And I think that's the key distinction for me. And the point I'm trying to make, it links with what I'm saying here, is that when you go to certain groups nowadays, they will give you a very, very specific understanding which is based upon secondary evidences, and they will say that this is absolutely qat'i, this is absolutely definitive. And actually, that's not true. You know, Allah has given you flexibility within certain elements. And it's about distinguishing between those, if you want the technical terms, qat'iyud dalil, those things which have got definitive evidence, from dhanniyud dalala, things that are speculative, there isn't 100% evidence, or the strength of the arguments of the evidence is not strong. Okay, very technical discussion, I understand, but just to summarize, I think the key element is that there are certain core things, and they're very simple. Beliefs, the values, like Allah talks about salah, zakah, amnu, amalu salih, doing good actions, and the form of those can change and vary depending upon one's understanding and school of thought. Okay, I'll take one question from there, then I'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
sister.
not really a question. You just said that the core elements should be like, they are not changing.
That's right,
Like,
non-negotiable.
Like for the prayer. And then you said that the prayer, the way of praying, it can change. I think I should be more exact
Now,
to the
we
way
talk
of prayer.
about all of the Prophet. So, for example,
Yeah, you just gave an example
yeah,
that if the way of praying can change in time. I think that the prayer is a core element, so it should be more exactly defined how to pray.
yes. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Amongst the 4 schools of thought, the prayer isn't the same. The Malikis, for example, put their hands here.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think the variety, but
That's right. So, what the
like
what,
I want to say that at least the core things, they should be very defined. You cannot have too much limits about the prayer, because in different, I'm a new Muslim, by the way, like I was
Yeah, no,
before
I-
a Christian.
yeah.
So I learned how to pray in Emirates, yeah.
okay.
So I agree more with that way, There are so many ways of praying
That's
here
right.
I've seen around me. I think about the prayer should be a little bit more strict how
Yeah,
to pray.
that's a no, welcome. Thank you
Yeah, I
for
know there
that.
are many years.
But the point, that's a very valid point. In terms of prayer itself, actually, the Quran doesn't give us any details of how to pray.
There are so many sunnah.
Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ, then every method of prayer that you find is acceptable because there are evidences for it. You know, some people rafa yadayn. Yes, the Prophet did do that. But for me to come and insist that my method of prayer is the only one, that would be wrong. Because there are evidences
Then
for.
some things are wrong and they should not be made.
No, what I mean is that the Prophet prayed in different ways. One scholar looks at the evidences and says, okay, the Prophet ﷺ prayed in this way. Another scholar will come and say the Prophet prayed this way. And they're all correct, because each scholar is trying to arrive at a deep understanding of that. Now, for one scholar to insist and say everybody must pray the way my understanding is, God hasn't given him that right.
I don't say about scholars, we have to study ourselves. We can read and we can bring the proofs, now how to pray. There are so many.
What the non-negotiable element is, we must pray. That's non-negotiable. You must pray 5 times a day.
No, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding. The thing is, even in Sharia, there is a core element. Like in beliefs, there is a core element. Similarly, in Sharia, there is a core element like prayer. Everybody will have 1 ruku and 2 sujood.
That's right, yeah.
Every unit will have certain, so that is fixed.
That is fixed.
Similarly, about fasting, zakat, there is a core element in Sharia as
On top
well.
of that
That's
is the
fixed.
essence of the ibadah, which is the submission.
That's
that is the
right,
most important.
absolutely.
But-
Irrespective of the fact.
But you see, the problem we have now is, like, and I know groups of people who will say, oh, anybody who does Rafa Yadayn is wrong. Or anybody who does that is wrong. But actually, that's lack of understanding. You know, and this is the point. Your point is absolutely valid. these four things we emphasize absolutely, and like the Brother Ali's just mentioned now, these are non-negotiable. Those things are established. There has to be sujood. Those are non-negotiable, established. But within that, there's variety, and we should tolerate that variety because Allah has given us a boundary, and we stay within that boundary. Tilka hududullah. The Quranic verse says, Tilka hududullah. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. These are the limits of God, and whoever steps beyond these limits, فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. He has wronged his own soul. So may Allah help us to get a deep understanding of the religion. And inshallah, if there are other questions, conscious of the time, we'll pick it up later. Inshallah, I'll be around and we can ask questions.
It's related to this question.
Okay,
In Hadith, when we were coming, we were talking about this topic. So in Hadith, it said if you read Alhamdu behind Imam, your namaz will be acceptable. If not, then not. And same Imam Abu Hanifa said, if you gonna read, then your namaz not will be acceptable. So this proper true, far away. So there's, as you say, there's nearly 9 different type of namaz we see in the world year round. So why not in Quran say what the Hazam min Maqam Ibrahim wa Musalla, get namaz from Maqam Ibrahim and Khana Kaaba, which is our central markaz. So if we read as they're reading, so everybody gonna read same.
See, the wisdom is that if Allah imposed one particular specific type, that would cause hardship for different people across the world.
Unity.
But unity doesn't mean uniformity. Unity doesn't mean we all become clones. We can have differences and still be united. So long as you have tolerance and understanding that we don't negotiate on the core elements of religion, but the rest is flexible and tolerance should be there. Okay, I'm really conscious of the time. Jazakallah. We'll finish off with Surah Al-Asr. Bismillah ar-Rahman wal Asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr.
We're going to take